Hi, this is Duke Ralston from the Reaper's Digest. I want to thank you for listening to the show, and I wanted to ask you to buy the Reaper's Digest a cup of coffee. Just go to Ko-fi.com/tennessemacabre and send us a tip. Thank you again.
Welcome to a night.
Hello, and welcome to the Reaper's Digest, where we discuss all things horror. My name is Duke Ralston. I'm one of your hosts. And why don't you introduce yourself?
I am Blake Ray. I am your other host. And we're joined by a special guest this week.
Hello, I'm Michael Ruther.
And Mike has been with us through the Amityville muck, as it were.
Yes.
As we discuss the Amityville Horror. We're getting on to our part 2 of the podcast, which is hopefully a lot better than part 2 of the movies.
It's just about got to be.
Yeah, it's got to be. Last week, if you remember, we discussed the book adaptation by Jay Anson. And it is pretty good. Well, that's debatable. It is pretty profitable.
Yes.
It is pretty profitable. But it
did what it set out to do. It was very successful and it was very intentional.
It was. And then in 1979, you get the Amityville Horror. One of the classic horror movies of the late 70s, early 80s.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
We were talking a little bit before we got started that in the first weekend, only opening in 800 theaters, it grossed about $8 million.
Yep.
I haven't done the math on that yet, but in 1979, that's
a lot of money. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was produced for a relatively small amount of money. No. Yeah. So James Brolin, who was, George Lutz, he took less up front, but he was promised 10% of the gross sales after the release, right? So when the movie comes out, he eventually gets about $17 million, which adjusted for inflation is about $55 million.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's a lot of scratch to just run around the house looking like shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he did a great job of that.
That is one thing I will say. Let's talk about that first movie because it is a classic.
It is classic, yes.
One thing I liked about it that you don't see a lot now, like if you look at the Ryan Reynolds remake, Brolin looked terrible in that movie.
Oh,
he did.
Did you watch Ryan Reynolds recently?
Not recently.
Oh, he looks like a melting candle by the end of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he just looked so rough the whole movie. By the end of it, you're just going, wow.
Yeah, James Brolin, they did a great job of that because he visibly degrades in front of your eyes.
The makeup effects were pretty good. You didn't have a lot of them. They were subtle.
They weren't really demanding.
Yeah.
No.
What did you think of the pacing? Because I think that's my biggest problem with it.
Well, I think this is the same sort of issue that we run in with the book, and that's that for most of the middle, it's just a sort of a listing of events. This happened, and then this happened, and this happened. None of it is actually moving a plot. None of it is actually driving a conflict. So it never really loses that tone of just sort of reporting events in a chronological sequence without a whole lot of like character development or character driving. Of course we do see George deteriorate, but we don't really get a whole lot of learning George. It's hard to get a sense of that being a loss when he is not much of a character to begin with.
It's a series of anecdotes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Now, again, that sort of works if you believe it's a real event, which folks still did in '79.
But one thing that is, I think, particularly interesting about that with the film adaptation is that there's a lot of events that didn't happen in the book, like Father. See, I don't even know what to call him because he's Mancuso. He's Mancuso in the novel, and he's Delaney in the '79 film, and in the 2005 adaptation, he is Calloway.
Yeah.
So, and I can't imagine a choice, more arbitrary than renaming the priest.
Yeah.
But in this particular case, Father Delaney is blind by the end of it. He's stricken blind.
Yeah.
And that wasn't even part of the ostensibly true account of the Lutzes.
No.
Or of anything in the orbit of the real house at 112 Ocean Avenue.
Yeah.
I think an interesting piece.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's not like taking Lord of the Rings and adapting it to the screen, where you expect a little bit of there's a little bit of leeway for the movie, and I think we all generally give movies that are adapted to the screen, we give them a little bit of leeway, for their interpretation. But if you're telling this as a true story, which I think they were in '79, you don't have that leeway,
right?
And you depart from the book, you sort of lose it.
Yeah, I think that definitely dovetails with our conversation from last time about how there's really no possibility of this thing existing, beyond its particular pop cultural moment without the idea of it being real.
Exactly.
And if the film isn't painting by at least those numbers, then that should just immediately torpedo that illusion.
Yeah. It becomes a really, really bad dark old house movie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It is the old dark house personified, though.
Yeah. Yeah, is.
This is where you get all those tropes we're used to seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because one of the things that immediately leaped out at me when I was just doing some initial research was looking at things like reception. And the critics gave the Amityville Horror from 1979, I want to say something like 24, and the audiences had a vastly different reaction to it. They responded to it a whole lot better, a whopping 50 something. It was I think it was like 54, 52. Same thing with the 2005 one. It was something like that, where critics gave it early 20s and audiences gave it mid 50s.
I think Amityville Horror it's an icon. It's a symbol. You kind of see that same. The house itself is never replicated in movies that I'm aware of, but you see they get awful close, and everything that comes after, I think, is influenced by the Amityville Horror. You even see it cropping up. I'm trying to think of the series. Is it Paranormal?
Paranormal.
No, it's the series about the couple that the Catholic Church.
The Conjuring.
Conjuring. And you see it, and the Amityville is in one of the movies, and it's just kind of a bit part, but you immediately know where you're at, and you know what's going on.
Those quarter moon windows.
Yes.
Yeah, you can't put those kind of windows in any sort of building without it being an homage, because I don't think that those kind of windows would occur to anybody without it.
Right. Exactly.
Now, I think this gets at something I wanted to talk about originally, something Mike and I were talking about over the phone, is that this becomes the archetype, the Aristotelian ideal of haunted houses, right?
Yes.
It becomes an American myth.
Yes.
Simpsons did it.
Did they?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Well, they had haunted house with, like, the bloody walls, get out,
Yeah.
I mean, it's something. By the time the Simpsons get to it, it's got a little bit of poltergeist. But do we really have poltergeist without it?
I don't think you do.
So
I don't know. You don't.
I think there are cases either way, but I think there's a really strong case to say that without that influence, it doesn't happen.
Right.
Because so much of I mean, it's a really seminal work. Irrespective of critical reception, its fingerprints are on just about anything that has to do with a haunted house at this point.
One of my favorite little homages was in the new Addams Family movie, the animated one.
Yes.
I was watching it with my kid, and in the beginning, they're going through the house, and the house goes, "Get out!" And she goes, "You're always so cranky before your coffee." Coffee down the toilet.
And that line is very iconic.
Very.
You immediately, those 3 words, it's like you're going to need a bigger boat. You immediately know what movie it comes from. It spans generations. You say that, you're talking ghost story. You're talking Amityville Horror.
I struggle to find something as iconic a line in the annals of horror, modern horror. Children of the Night, what beautiful music they make, baby.
Yeah.
But even that's more of a deep cut.
It doesn't really roll off the tongue either.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Yeah. It's obviously the better written line.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm trying
I think that's why Get Out is so, so much. It's not a really well written line. It seems real.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's very, what's the word I'm searching for? Very cinema verite.
Yeah.
If cinema verite can be applied to something that's obviously not real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Interesting conundrum, but yes.
Yeah. How does one facsimilate real life in something that is completely made up? I think that's a question for all art, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's way too deep for this podcast.
Yeah.
But the Amityville Horror gets a pass just for originality's sake.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The bleeding walls are a good touch.
Mm-hmm.
I love all the smell acting in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Because I didn't think about how much of the book is based on the smells.
A lot of it.
You smell perfume, you smell dung, you smell brimstone.
Mm-hmm.
But there were a lot of scenes of George and Kathy just kind of looking up and going, huh.
And Aunt Helena smelled so hard she puked.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
but they do a really great job of conveying that. And I would not say that that's exactly, it's not a Hitchcock horror thing. It's kind of a combination gross out horror thing rather than Hitchcock. There's no suspense, but it's all conveyed by the acting.
yeah.
There's no special effects. It's just, I really respect that.
Now, the acting in it is pretty good.
Yes.
Margaret Kidder,
Mm-hmm.
very good.
Very good, yes.
Also, I have a crush on her now.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
She was an incredible actress.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, let's get into some of the derivative works from it.
I would choose the word spawn, but okay.
You know, that for God's sakes, get out. Really? Really? I wouldn't have put that on the poster to the second one because,
No.
you know, the second one, it seemed, the second one, Amityville 2, The Possession, is the story of a family that moves into the Amityville house. They're extremely Long Island.
Yeah.
Just aggressively Italian.
Mm-hmm.
Like a, you know, Mario and Luigi level stereotype.
Yep.
And they are just, they kind of suck from the beginning. They're awful people.
Mm-hmm.
And then the brother gets possessed, the oldest brother, Sonny.
Yes.
Now, Sonny then seduces his sister and then kills the family. And at that point, it goes from being sort of the sister story to being the priest story.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets
Now we're talking about Mancuso, Delaney, or Calloway, or somebody else.
somebody else.
Okay.
A whole new priest.
Whole new priest.
Yeah. Brand new parish, the whole nine. The house looks updated to the 80s.
Still got the windows?
Still got the windows,
Gotta have
but
that.
everything else is very 80s.
Yes.
And, you know, I don't know why them putting contact paper in that house made such an impression on me in the first movie. But I was watching it with my wife, and I just looked at her and go, they're ruining those cabinets.
Yeah.
But it's like they've done that to the whole house in the second one.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it seems to follow more closely the DeFeo story.
Yeah.
Because it's very much he goes into court and tries to pass possession off as his
Right.
reason of innocence.
Yep.
You know? So,
And it dovetails very nicely, and they are going with the whole DeFeo story, but it dovetails very nicely with The Exorcist. So you're taking, you know, the most popular horror movie of 1979 and the most popular horror movie of the decade, and you're drawing on both of them.
yeah. And with a little bit of body horror.
Yeah.
Now, the makeup effects in Amityville 2
Mm-hmm.
are really, really pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, they're really impressive.
Mm-hmm.
I, however, did not expect so much body horror in this movie.
I think
so much incest, really.
I think as your story grows weaker, you have to rely more on things like body horror and makeup effects and special effects.
Yeah.
I also think that enough time had passed, even though it wasn't that much time, but a lot changed in the length of time that passed as far as special effects and makeup effects go.
Yeah. Because you compare the makeup effects to the I'm looking for who did the makeup effects. Special effects makeup artist.
Mm-hmm.
He did quite a bit. He did RoboCop. He did The Fly. That's what the whole thing reminded me of.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, you've got like some, what do you call it? Cronenberg-esque makeup effects.
Yes.
That I thought saved the movie.
Yes.
Because otherwise it's just...
I don't know that I'd say they saved it, but they were doing CPR the whole time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was kind of DOA from the moment.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Yeah, the moment he was like talking to his sister about everything he talked to her about. You know, I was very uncomfortable with that. I keep going back to it. I was like, this is an unnecessary subplot.
I think it's funny that you keep going back to something that you're just very clearly not comfortable actually talking about. You know? They talked about what they talked about.
Yeah. Well,
they're clearly very scarred by this.
Well, it's part of the gross out factor of the movie.
It is. And there was a lot more gross out in that movie.
Yeah. You gotta, when you stop and think about this from the perspective of the guys that made it, you've got a hit in '79. You know, roughly, I think Halloween was that '78 or '77.
I think Halloween was '79 again.
Okay, '79.
'79 was a big year for horror movies because that's when Halloween came out too. Yeah,
and so what happens is that those movies, this is the dawn of the sequel, and those movies became franchises and still are today. So the folks that are looking at Amityville are going, well, this movie is franchise worthy. The problem you have is the same thing that we keep coming back to. The original had at least the element of truth when it came out. Once you lose that, you don't have much.
Yeah.
Well, what you do have is the branding, and that's what I mean. That's what really I think the phenomenon is here. Because even though these have all been so poorly received, I found a different Amityville 2 that was that I did not watch. That was that had a completely different plot. And it was 11% on Rotten Tomatoes. But you know, even as recently as 2021, there's movies with Amityville in the title. Amityville Moon ostensibly deals with werewolves. Yeah. I mean, it's got to be hot trash, but you know, werewolves. I'm here for it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna watch it.
Of course.
There's one about a haunted symbol monkey that used to belong to the DeFeo family that that makes people kill the Amityville toy box. Yes. There's like every
Amityville, It's About Time.
The haunted clock.
Yeah.
You know, anything that you can haunt and slap Amityville on it, it's going to sell. And
absolutely.
It's a trick that works every single time, it looks like.
What if all of these are true stories? And the DeFeos just have the world's most destructive yard sale.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Just a yard sale to ruin the world.
Yeah, it's like like the Warren's Reliquary was just like a yard sale. You know?
Yeah.
For $5.
$5. It bites.
I think, you know, and I don't know exactly how to wrap my mind about it, but I'm going to throw this out here. One of the interesting things is you're dealing with the idea that evil can attach itself to a house.
Yeah.
You're also dealing with the idea that evil can attach itself to relics and items from that house as part of the sequelization. So, am I right to say that is it a Catholic idea or is it even a pagan idea?
It smacks of animism.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, animism. That's what I'm searching for. Yeah.
Yeah, it smacks of animism, so it's almost pre-Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think the idea of you know, relics is kind of Catholic, you know, like
kinda, yeah.
Of some saint in the, you know, the basement of some cathedral, you know, it seems to me like that's more of a Catholic ideation.
Yeah, the idea that like the Holy Grail, or because you have holy relics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know?
That's what I'm talking about, like a saint's bone.
Yeah, like a saint's
A piece of the true cross was something that in my Amityville Horror, the interview with Danny Lutz, Lorraine, busted out her own piece of the one true cross.
That's a big get.
Yeah. That's huge.
She didn't have it at the time of the Amityville investigations. She had another relic in her hand that caused the saint to appear to her and protect her.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Wow.
That's what she said.
Yeah. Now she is.
Just to make this distinction, though, that is interview with the real Lorraine Warren and the real Danny Lutz from like the real people, because I think that's something that's kind of getting lost in this conversation, is the fact that at the core of this there are ostensible real people there are real people this ostensibly happened to.
Yes, exactly.
And the Warrens, are they fraudsters? I think so. The movies, if you get into like the Conjuring movies, Annabelle and all that stuff, they play out as like Christian superhero movies.
Yeah.
Like even the Amityville 2, The Possession, I keep going back to that because I'll never forget it. Now, even that movie, the final climax is just an exorcism, and not even an especially visually interesting one, except for the makeup effects.
Right.
It's a lot of he's splitting apart, and he's a bug monster. Oh wait, no, he's not. It's not like The Exorcist where you have someone get chucked out a window. Sorry, spoilers for The Exorcist if you haven't seen that yet.
Well, in a few months after you've had a chance to forget that bombshell that Blake just dropped on us.
Watch it. So, here is kind of where I'm at with this. You've kind of got, so we can call it animism, or we can say, the idea of holy relics is definitely a Christian thing. So if holy relics exist, then is it reasonable that unholy relics exist?
I think judging by, I would say it has to go both ways, right?
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
So we're kind of swimming around in being from the South, I'm assuming that I know your background, Blake, is with Protestantism, so's mine. I don't know about you, Mike, but Protestantism tends to be a more of a rationalist religion, and I don't know, this is kind of foreign to us. But
definitely less gifts of the Spirit until you get to the edge of Protestantism.
Exactly. So it's almost like a horror movie deeply grounded in Christian or semi-Christian mysticism.
That's where I was looking for. There's a lot less mysticism in mainstream Protestantism.
Yes.
Yeah. As opposed to the idea that transcendental meditation can open a doorway to invite in Satan.
Yeah.
Which you get in some Protestantism, but that tends to be fringe.
Yeah.
I remember the preachers who used to come on campus from Westboro Baptist. They listed TM meditation, which that's a problem. That's a redundancy problem in the acronyms.
Yeah.
They said TM meditation opens the door to possession. So they were obviously big believers in possession. And in El Diablo himself,
Yeah.
So that's another thing I wanted to get at. So it's implied that from a demonology standpoint, and I'm not a demonologist yet.
Right.
We can't all be Ed Warren.
Yeah. The mailing course papers haven't come back. But, draw this turtle, and you get to be a demonologist. But wow, that's an old reference.
Yeah.
I just dated myself hardcore. Anyway, I was cranking my jalopy, and
Yeah.
no, but what I was saying was, it's implied that they're dealing with Beelzebub.
Yeah.
The Lord of the Flies.
Because of the flies.
Because of the flies and the smell of dung,
Mhm.
because Beelzebub's the Lord of the Dung Heap. So that's like a celebrity level.
Yeah.
You know, you're not just dealing with some, regular workaday demon. You got Beelzebub.
Yeah, that's executive level right there.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing to me is they imply it, but they never name it.
Mm-hmm.
No, they never name it.
They never do.
They never name it. Yeah.
But I think that's just like a little. I mean, it's so heavily implied if you know anything about Catholic
Oh yeah.
iconography and
Oh, absolutely.
mysticism.
I'm not arguing that it's not. I think that adds an element to it. I think if they come out and said that Satan was in the house, it would be a lot less believable than if they let you draw that conclusion yourself.
Yeah.
Right. Because now all us armchair demonologists get to feel real smart. All like, I know that demon.
Yeah.
Pikachu. I am just old. But I think what's interesting here is that it almost becomes an urban legend.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of urban legends, I think this is a pretty good one,
I think it is too.
Better than the ex-celebrity removed a rib to autofellatiate.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think that thinking about it as an urban legend or American myth, that's an interesting lens when we see things like direct adaptations. So if I could talk about Ryan Reynolds for a little bit,
Please.
I keep referring to it by the lead actor. I can't recall who directed it.
Yeah, don't worry about it. I'll look it up.
Yeah. If you could, I would appreciate it. But the one with Ryan Reynolds in it as George Lutz. Of course, in this one, George Lutz is young stepfather, sort of charmingly bearded. Like checks those general Lutz boxes, but he's a little bit more funny and charming. The kids all have different names.
Andrew Douglas.
And I think Andrew Douglas. And another thing that's really kind of interesting about it, the only names that seem to remain sort of static through every telling of the actual Lutz moving into 112 Ocean Avenue story is George and Kathy and Harry the dog. And again, to go back to the urban legend and the iterative telling and retelling, well, I heard this, I heard that kind of feeling of it. There's again more things that happen in this version that didn't happen in the original film, which again, of course, didn't happen in the book. So this plays a lot harder into the tension between a stepfather and a young teenage stepson. In this case, the father has passed on. The real father of the Lutz children,
Biological father.
the biological father, he actually left. Did I say real father?
Yeah. I'll cut it.
That's well. Part of that is Daniel's interpretation. He says that Lutz had no parental skills or parental involvement. But that was something that was actually kind of a stressor for Daniel Lutz to hear him tell it. Was people would call him by the wrong name, and that's because in every film he's got a different name. The daughter goes from being Missy to being Amy to being Chelsea in 2005, and there's actually a fourth DeFeo child in the 2005 version. You want to take a crack at what her name might have been?
No.
Charity?
Jody. Yeah.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good addition.
That is.
If what you're doing is telling a better story, yeah, or if that's the goal. So that stuff about the exposure pens for the Shinnehook, the Native Americans and stuff like that doesn't play so well, even as recently as 2005. So it's like, well, what if John Ketchum slashed his own throat in the basement so that his presence would live there forever? Oh, that's cool. Write that down. They go kind of all over the place with it. In the book, they tip something over, and that's what knocks a wall over, revealing the Red Room, which, in spite of what anybody says, is in the original blueprints, according to one source. We're all over the place with sources here.
Yep.
But yeah, just again, it's an iterative retelling of the same story, but it's by a different person who heard it from, Jay Anson, who heard it from so-and-so, who heard it from Andrew Douglas, that this is how it went down. And a little bit more gets added every time until eventually 112 Ocean Avenue is the creepy house at the end of every block. Except in the 2005 Andrew Douglas one, it's actually 412 Ocean Avenue.
Why? 112 must have been copyrighted or something.
I think it was something like that, or to like reduce traffic to the original. But it doesn't have anything like this. I can't remember what the name is now, what the address is now, but it's something completely different.
Yeah.
It's sold for 800,000 something in 2017. Currently occupied. No paranormal activity, as far as anyone can tell.
Yeah. If they turned it into a bed and breakfast, I would go.
I would too, I think.
I think it's big enough to where I would just try to get like a handful of people together and turn it into some kind of commune.
Yeah.
I mean, it's over 3 floors. It's a lot of space.
Plus, you've got the portal to hell, and that's a lot of storage space.
You got a portal.
Yeah. You can fit a lot of things in there.
Yeah. Hell is
very roomy.
Yeah.
Warm but roomy. Yeah.
Statistically, probably a lot bigger than heaven.
Yeah. So, interesting thing, the only names that really don't change, the only things that don't change in the retellings are the names of the Lutzes, not the children, the parents.
Yeah, George and Kathy.
George and Kathy, and 112 Ocean Avenue.
Well, they
changed that.
Well, that changes. Well, okay, the house doesn't change.
The house doesn't change.
The house doesn't change.
In 2005, it's a very different layout and a very different exterior. But the constant feature is prominently visible.
The windows.
The boathouse. Yeah, of course, the windows.
The boathouse. Yeah.
That was such a trip watching the original movie, and they're talking about, mooring fees are up to like $20, and they're like,
yeah. That is funny.
Like an hour? Like, what are we talking about here?
So, also, I was struck by just how violent people are to the kids in these movies.
Yeah.
I watched a couple of them, and the child abuse stays.
Yes.
Yeah, even Ryan Reynolds is going nose to nose with a teenage stepson, all like, we're having fun, right? We're friends, right? Now hold the log while I chop it.
Yeah, and it is heavily implied in the original that George is going to kill him.
Yes.
Yeah, going after them with an axe. He's chopping
Yeah.
down the bathroom door, and Kathy, Margot Kidder, tackles him from the back, briefly turns into an old lady, starts crying, they hug each other. I'm really alarmed that wasn't a longer conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have needed to talk about that. I mean,
So, what were you doing?
we got some things we got to work through here.
My babies, and you know what? You're right. This is ridiculous. I'm just gonna put down my axe and we'll forget this ever happened. No.
Well, the whole thing stinks of somebody should be talking.
Yeah.
Stuff,
Yeah.
Well, do you want to drift back into real life for a bit?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, because someone eventually did.
Mm-hmm.
One of the films that I watched over the past week was My Amityville Horror, the interview with Daniel Lutz, who is not, as you might believe, named Greg or Mike or Billy or Chris or any.
Sonny.
Yeah, he's one of the Lutz children, and he is going on camera to discuss his experience.
Uh-huh.
And it's interesting because he does interact with Lorraine. They have some tearful hugs. They whip out some relics and reminisce about the bad old days. And I think that it's hard to gauge someone's motivation after so much time and so much publicity and so much of this idea of the Amityville Horror existing in the background of the pop culture conscience for so long. But Daniel Lutz is talking about his childhood and his past, and he opens up on George pretty good. Says not a good father, like I mentioned a little bit earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that was specifically mentioned was the beating him with the spoon. That was in the book. Remember, one of the first instances of paranormal activity.
Yeah.
To hear Daniel tell it, he would also order them around with the spoon like a drill sergeant, making them do stuff, and that this wasn't an isolated incident. He said it happened like 50 times.
Mm-hmm.
When asked about whether it ever happened before, he did mention that it did in fact happen at George's house a few times. So it's not like, if Daniel is to be believed in this case, it is not like that time on like the first few nights of their stay at 112 Ocean Avenue, this completely unexpected and unheard of behavior comes out of the blue. That's not the story Daniel's telling. That's the story that's the story that Jay Anson is helping the Lutzes tell. That is the story that the filmic adaptations, fall in lockstep behind. But if we were to take it on faith from Daniel Lutz, they were already being struck with objects and ordered around like a drill sergeant prior to moving to 112 Ocean Avenue.
Well, if you think about it from a literary standpoint, it cranks up the tension.
And again, if the goal is to tell a better story, people who are undamaged going into a place and being damaged by it is a much better story than damaged people moving house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the thing that's always gotten me, and sorry, this is just a point I wanted to make. The thing that's always gotten me about haunted house stories is, so what?
Mm-hmm.
So the house is haunted.
Mm-hmm.
So the walls bleed.
Mm-hmm.
What's it going to do to you? Well, if it can affect someone's behavior and cause them to hurt, kill, maim, destroy, well, then now we've got stakes.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike and I were writing partners for a long time, and we always talked about raising the stakes.
Yeah.
So that raises the stakes. So I think that you have to have it be because I'm being completely cynical. Jay Anson and the filmmakers, they're all just telling a story.
Mm-hmm.
I think Anson knew this was not. I think he was playing fast and loose with true story,
Yeah, and
Well-
and the implication is that George Lutz is going to become DeFeo,
Yeah.
and the house caused. They're really taking DeFeo's legal defense. They're saying the house caused DeFeo to kill those folks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's again, to cite Lutz, or actually to cite My Amityville Horror, there were some interesting things going on with the history and the the actual DeFeo, the DeFeo tragedy. One of the journalists that was there the night of, he was talking about how the Lutzes were in dire financial straits. They did have financial troubles as a result of this house. One of the interviewers, I can't remember exactly what her role is in relation to the children, but she was interviewing the children, when they were kids.
Right.
She had a more tender view of the Lutzes, it seemed like, and she was surprised to hear this information. They were also talking about how Lutz had prior knowledge of the occult, in as much as he had a lot of books on the subject. And when we're looking at Danny's recounting of it, Daniel, I keep calling him Danny, he's like 53.
Yeah.
But he's talking about his estranged stepfather doing telekinesis. Now he's asserting all along the way that he doesn't want to be the Amityville Horror guy. He just is. He's not profiteering off the Lutz's or off the DeFeo tragedy the way that his stepfather was, who he said loved to be in the limelight about it. He is just it just happened to him. It's a dark gift that he didn't really want, and but here he is, telling all, presumably, again, for money.
Yeah.
And that sounds pretty cynical, and it's just one view of it. The other view of it is, here's a dude who, for the decades since his childhood, absolutely 100% believes that his estranged stepfather knows devil magic.
Right.
So, I mean, it's almost like that's one of those things that makes the reality and the debunking and the fantasy of it really kind of hard to parse out, because almost everybody involved is one or the other.
Yes.
Either profiteering or actually a true dyed-in-the-wool believer.
Yeah, and looking at Lorraine Warren talk about her piece of the cross and talk about her experiences, I mean, like, it would be hard for me to tell her to her face that she is lying.
Yeah.
Like it's easy to believe that she believes what she says, whether or not I do. But at the same time, paranormal investigation, at least at a time before there was like anything, investigation on the level that we have today, hugely profitable. People were ready to believe in stuff like this because of the exorcism.
Yeah. I think there was a lot more. I mean, there's a lot of paranormal investigation today, but it's these are folks that are hobbyists, most of them. Whereas back in this time period, I think there was and we talked about this in the last show, there was a lot more acceptance of the paranormal, and a lot more acceptance of calling professional paranormal investigators. I don't know where you got those credentials at. Probably
Psychical Research Institute.
Yeah, exactly. But you had people out there doing that. I mean, it was a thing.
It's a weird thing.
And I think that some of them were, when you start going through it, I think some of them were absolutely in it to fake it and make money, and I think there were some that were in it that absolutely believe what they're talking about.
Yeah, well, I think that as far as the credibility for an audience goes, based on that, though, irrespective of who believes or doesn't believe internally, if you slap on a statement that says this is independently verified to the extent that is possible, well, what sort of process are you describing in the 70s? It's prohibitively expensive to call outside the county.
Yes.
There's no such thing as an internet. I mean, well, they know about it at like MIT, and that's it.
Yeah.
There's no way to just passively receive information. If you want information, you have to really roll up your sleeves, pick up a shovel, and dig. And so now, independently verified to the extent that is possible is basically like, I talked to this guy and he said that happened. It's essentially the legal definition of hearsay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I think, and what I am surprised about in this whole discussion, because we're coming up on our time, and so what I'm surprised is that we cannot get away from the true story thing.
You can't. You can never separate the true story from the Amityville.
Once you throw that out there, once that Rubicon has been crossed, you cannot undo it.
Well,
no.
Yeah, it's one of the things that, as poorly received that is by like audiences, critics, and myself alike, it has to live in the imagination because, especially after watching those interviews, that 53-year-old, 10-year-old boy says it happened to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's hard to look straight at and say, nuh-uh.
Yeah. Exactly.
If you have any kind of empathy, I don't know.
Yeah. So,
irrespective of what sort of like scrutiny it still bears up under.
Yeah.
Let me just ask a question here, and this is just do you think, okay, and I don't know the best way to word this, do you believe in paranormal phenomena?
I think
I do.
I am on the fence. I teeter back and forth. It almost depends on the day. I think I would say that I'm paranormal agnostic. I definitely think there are more things in heaven and earth that could be explained by our current measuring. But I don't know. I don't know that I could just say yes or no to that and then just go to the wall defending that answer.
But you're open.
I go to the wall for it, but I've seen some weird stuff.
Yeah.
Now, I might not be the most reliable source, but I don't know who is.
Well, we're all anecdotal in our own right.
Right.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It's an interesting question. We'll have to get into it. You want to do like 5 or 6 parts on the Amityville Horror?
I could watch a few more of these awful movies.
Yeah.
And also while they're fun.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, there's nothing quite as fun as a truly horrible horror movie.
Right?
Well, they get worse. I want to watch that Toy Box one just because, man. It's a haunted symbol monkey. Come on.
Yeah, it's got to be cool.
That was the end of the night, and was like, I don't know what else could be haunted, man. You ever see those simple monkeys that freaked me out when I was a kid?
And after this movie, they still will.
Be that unscary,
right? Yeah. So, Duke, what are you promoting this week?
Well, as always, I am promoting Tennessee Macabre. We're on Saturday nights. Well, we've just added been added to a new venue, so we're on Tingler TV. It's on stream on your computer. We're on the Roku. You can find us on Betamax TV and Other Worlds TV. You find us Saturday night at midnight. ITV Chattanooga, 10 o'clock Eastern Time. And then we're on the Vortex and the Monster Channel as well.
That's groovy.
Excellent.
What about you, Blake?
Always promoting Blood Oaks.
Of course.
Always to the end of time. We've got a new EP coming out June 21st.
Yep.
Just got the masters back. They sound fantastic.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, so really stoked. It's a 5-song EP. Took us quite a while because of just so many things.
Right.
You know, yeah, tragedies and triumphs, you know?
Yes.
Anything to promote, Mike?
No, not right now. It's too early to know when it'll be ready. So I'm just still working in the dark for the time being.
All right. Well, we'll have you back on, and then you can promote.
I hope so. This is
absolutely
a blast. Yeah. Thank you guys for
having
me.
Thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
Okay. All right. So until next time, this has been the Reaper's Digest.
Adios.
Good night, all.
Thank you for choosing the Reaper's Digest podcast. Like and subscribe. Recommend us to your friends. Check us out on all social media outlets. We'll see you next time.